Good morning, afternoon, or evening, cats and dogs. Today's video comes from lessons 6.1 and 6.3 guided notes on solving percent problems. So we're going to talk about two different methods for solving percent problems. The first is the percent proportion, and it's something you're going to need to memorize. So the percent proportion I'm going to highlight here in the box is P over B equals R over 100. P represents not the percent, but the part. B represents the base, total, or whole. That's one of the easiest things to identify. And R is going to represent the percent, but not written as a decimal since we're putting it over 100. So part over base equals R out of 100, the percent over 100. So for our first set of questions, we're going to use the percent proportion to answer each of these. We'll round to the nearest tenth if needed. That means if the decimal is non-repeating or it goes on for more than 2 or 3 places after the decimal. So number 1 is already done for you. It says 48 is what percent of 52? So R is my unknown, my percent is my unknown. Neither of those numbers has a percent after them, so neither of them is a percent. The base is 52 because it says what percent of 52, meaning like out of. Your base is your total. So 52 is your base. By the way, your base is typically closest to the word of in these questions, so I'll repeat that a lot. And that means that 48 has to be the part. So we plug them into our proportion. P over B is 48 over 52 equals R out of 100, and then we cross multiply to solve. I'm not going to go over the cross multiplication, all of those steps detail by detail, because we've seen that before. Now I'm going to go through these questions pretty quickly, so there may be times where you need to pause the video to jot things down, and that's no big deal. Number 2, very similar to number 1, 295 is what percent of 400? So R is my unknown again. The base is 400 because it's what percent of 400. 295 then is the part. Let's plug them in. P over B is 295 out of 400 equals R out of 100. Let's cross multiply. 400 times R is 400R. 295 times 100 is 29,500. Divide both sides by 400 and you will get a solution of 73.75%. There's really no reason to round in this case since it's a short enough decimal. And I always like to think, does my answer make sense? 295 is what percent of 400? Well, 295 is 73.75% of 400. That makes sense because 295 is pretty close to 300 and 300 out of 400 is 75%. So pretty close. All right, number 3 is done for you. It's very similar to question number 4. What percent of 22 is 56, meaning out of 22? So in this case, my base is 22. R is still my unknown. Neither of those numbers is a percent. So R is my unknown, and that means my part is 56. So this is kind of unusual that our part is actually bigger than our base. That doesn't happen a lot, but it can happen. So P over B is 56 out of 22 equals R out of 100. Cross multiply and solve. There is a correction to make here. I made a typo when I typed this in, and I can't believe I didn't fix it in all this time. It says 255.5%. It should be 254.5%. And that's rounded. I believe it is a repeating decimal. So I think you get 254.54 repeating percent. I probably could have written it out as that, but I guess I didn't in the past. All right, let's look at number 4. What percent of 4 is 15? Your base is 4 because it's of 4. The part then is 15. R is my unknown. So for P over B, it's 15 over 4 equals R out of 100. Let's go ahead and cross multiply and solve. Feel free to pause at any time. If you want to cross multiply and solve and then double check your answer, you can do that. 4 times R is 4R. 15 times 100 is 1500. Divide both sides by 4. And you get a percent over 100%, 375%. That will happen when your part is bigger than your base, like it is for numbers 3 and 4. All right, moving right along. Number 5 and 6, again, going to go hand in hand. So this one's a little different because we're given the percent this time. So in question number 5, it says, what is 99% of 840? So of 840 means 840 has to be my base. My percent R is given to us. It's 99. It tells us 99%. And so P in this case is my unknown. So when I set up P over B, it's going to be P over 840 equals 99 out of 100. And then, of course, we cross multiply to solve. I'm not going to go through all those steps. Number 6, what is 4.5% of 38? 38 is my base. 4.5 is R, and then my part is my unknown. So for P over B, we're going to have P over 38 equals 4.5 out of 100. Let's cross multiply. 100 times P is 100P. 38 times 4.5 is 171. Divide both sides by 100 to get P equals, or my part equals, 1.71. All right, 7 and 8 are not quite going to go hand in hand here because number 7 is very similar to the last couple. It's just worded a little bit differently. So it says find 16% of 36.2. So of 36.2 means 36.2 is my base, 16 is R, P is my unknown. P over B is going to be P over 36.2 equals 16 out of 100. Remember that percent always goes over 100. Let's cross multiply. 100 times P is 100P. 36.2 times 16 is 579.2. Divide both sides by 100 to get P equals 5.792. You might notice that we're just moving that decimal point to the left 2 places when we divide by 100. All right, number 8. So 8, 9, and 10 are going to go hand in hand. 85 is 80% of what number? So obviously 80% is going to be my R. 85, though, is the part. In this case, my unknown actually is the base because it says of what number, meaning out of what. So B is my unknown in this case. Oops, not V. There we go. I can type today. I'm down in my basement where it's a little cold, so my hands don't work quite as well. So we've got P over B is going to be 85 over B equals 80 out of 100. We'll cross multiply to solve. We've got 80 times B is 80B. 85 times 100 is 8500. Divide both sides by 80 to get our final solution of 106.25. All right, let's try some of these. Number 9. 60 is 29% of what number? 29 is obviously R. 60 is my part, B is my unknown. So for P over B, we're going to have 60 over B equals 29 out of 100. Cross multiply, 29 times B is 29B. 60 times 100 is 6,000. Divide both sides by 29. We will need to round in this case. We're going to end up getting a pretty long decimal. So we end up getting 6,000 divided by 29 is 206.896. And so forth, to the nearest tenth is about 206.9. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at number 10. 4.5 is 90% of what number? 90 is R. 4.5 is the part. B is my unknown. P over B is 4.5 over B equals R, or 90 over 100. Cross multiply. 90 times B is 90B. 4.5 times 100 is 450. Divide both sides by 90. Final solution is 5. Ignore that random cursor there. It's just B equals 5. All right, naturally I have some questions for you guys to try. Go ahead and pause the video. Give these 3 questions a try, and when you're ready, go ahead and start the video. All right, so for number 1, in this case, let me uncover this. P is 9, 45 is R, and B is my unknown. It's like our last few questions. We have 9 over B equals 45 out of 100. When we cross multiply, we get 45B equals 900. Divide both sides by 45 to get B equals 20. All right, number 2. What percent of 60 is 12? 60 is my base because it's out of 60. My part is 12, so we get P over B, 12 over 60 equals R out of 100. Cross multiply, we have 60R equals 1200 for 12 times 100. Divide both sides by 60 and we get R. Don't forget your percent sign here because we're looking for the percent. R is 20%. Finally, number 3. What number is 5% of 46? Meaning out of 46, 46 is my base, R is 5. P over B is P over 46 equals R, or 5 out of 100. Cross multiply, we have 100 times P, which is 100P, equals 46 times 5, which is 230. Divide both sides by 100 to get 2.3. All right, as promised though, we have a second strategy for solving percent problems. This one is the percent equation. On your mid-unit quiz, I will ask you to know both of them. Not for the entire quiz, but at least for the first few, I do want to see that you can use each of these methods. So the percent equation is P equals R times B. R, though, is going to be the percent written as a decimal in this case, since we're not putting it over 100. So you're going to notice several of the questions going hand in hand. So we're going to do number 11, which is already done in your notes, 12 and 13, and then I'll have you try number 14 on your own. So number 11, it says find 75% of 25. 25 is my base out of 25. 75% is R, and we do want to write that as a decimal, which is 0.75. I'm just going to move that out of the way. It's going to be 0.75. So if we have P equals R times B, that's P equals R 0.75 times B 25, and we get 18.75. I actually find the percent equation for problems like this, where it asks you to find the percent of a number, to be a little easier. You may find that you prefer one over the other, and we'll compare those in a little bit as well. So number 12, find 9% of 410. So 410 is my base, clearly, out of 410. 9% as a decimal is 0.09, and that's R. So P equals R times B is going to be P equals 0.09 times 410, which will get us 36.9. All right, number 13. So for this one, find 40% of 7. So I know this is hard to see here. 40% is 0.4, that's R. My base is 7, part is my unknown. So P equals R times B is P equals 0.4 times 7. My part will be 2.8. Sorry, all these boxes are in the way here. Let's move them out. There we go. All right, here's the deal. I want you to try number 14 on your own. It's the same kind of question. Pause the video when you're ready, restart it. All right, so for this one, 26% is R, it's 0.26. My base is 505. So P equals R times B is going to be P equals 0.26 times 505. That will get us 131.3. All right, number 15. 15 is going to go in hand with the next few. 256 is what percent of 800? So in this case, my base is 800 of 800. 256 is my part. So P equals R times B is 256 equals R times 800. We have to solve this equation, though. Divide both sides by 800, you get 0.32. We're looking for a percent, though. 0.32 as a percent is 32%. So let's give this a try. Number 16, 2089.5 is what percent of 2100? So for this question, my base is 2100, 2089.5 is the part, and R is my unknown. So for P equals R times B, we have 2089.5 equals R times 2100. We'll divide both sides by 2100. Again, we have to solve this. So what you're plugging into your calculator is 2089.5 divided by 2100. That will get us 0.995 as a percent. That is 99.5%. Number 17, 15.4 is what percent of 55? 55 is my base, 15.4 is the part, R is my unknown. So we're going to have P equals R times B is 15.4 equals R times 55. Divide both sides by 55, and we will get a solution of 0.28. That is 28%. All right, I want you to try number 18 on your own. Pause the video when you're ready, go ahead and start it, and we'll take a look at it. So for number 18, my base is 350, my part is 7, R is my unknown. So we have P equals R times B. This will be 7 equals R times 350. Divide both sides by 350. And this will get you 0.02, which is 2%. All right, number 19. So 19, 20, 21, and 22, I think, are going to go hand in hand. 36 is 9% of what number? 9% is definitely R, which is 0.09. 36 is my part, B is my unknown. So very similar to the last few where we have to solve this equation, although we won't have to move the decimal point anywhere at all. So P equals R times B is 36 equals 0.09 times B. Divide both sides by 0.09. We get that our base is 400. All right, number 20. 2,925 is 39% of what number? 2,925 is the part, 39% or 0.39 is R, my base is my unknown. So for P equals R times B, I have 2925 equals R, 0.39 times B. Divide both sides by 0.39 and we will get a base of 7,500. All right, let's try number 21. 576 is the part, 90% is 0.9, that's R, and my base is my unknown. So for P equals R times B, we have 576 equals 0.9 times B. Divide both sides by 0.9, and we will get a solution of 640. All right, try number 22 on your own. Pause the video. When you're ready, restart it. How'd you do with this one? This one's a little trickier because 7.5% as a decimal is not 7.5, it's 0.075, so be careful with that. 0.6 is my part, so P equals R times B. We have 0.6 equals 0.075 times B. Divide both sides by 0.075, and we will get that our base is 8. That's a little tricky there where we have a really weird decimal. All right, so for our next set of questions, 23, 24, and 25, they ask us to solve these using both the percent proportion and percent equation, just so we can compare the two. So what I suggest is trying each of these questions, pausing the video, 23, 24, 25, and when you're ready, unpause it, because I want to go through them, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on each of these questions, because you should really be able to do them on your own at this point. All right, hopefully you've given these a try. So number 23, we have 555.75 is what percent of 855? 555.75 is the part, 855 is the base. For the percent proportion, it's going to look like this. 555.75 over 855 equals R out of 100. When you cross multiply, you should get 65%. Now, if you're using the percent equation, remember that's P equals R times B. So that will be 555.75 equals R times 855. Divide by 855 where you get 0.65. Don't forget to write it as a percent. That should say R, not B. I just recognized that was wrong. Let me fix it. So this should say R equals, my bad. I usually notice my mistakes, but not always. Must have forgotten to change it to that. So my unknown here is R. I get R equals 0.65, which is 65%. That looks better. All right, number 24. 8.075 is 8.5% of what number? 8.5% is R. That's 0.085. 8.075 is the part. So if I do P over B, that's going to be 8.075 over B equals 8.5 out of 100. When you cross multiply to solve, you get that the base is 95. For the percent equation, you have 8.075 equals 0.085 times B, lots of decimals. Divide both sides by 0.085, and you still get 95 for your solution. So you get the same thing. Again, you might prefer one over the other. I do find more students prefer the proportion and seem to be a little bit better at it, but the equation works well too. All right, number 25, last one of these. What is 36% of 205? 205 is our base. 36% is R, and that's 0.36. But percent proportion, we just put it as 36 out of 100. So we have P over 205 equals 36 over 100. That's the important thing to remember. Percent proportion, you don't write the percent as a decimal, but you do for the percent equation. We do 100 times P, 36 times 205, divide both sides by 100, and you get 73.8. Now, percent equation, P equals R times B, is going to be 0.36 times 205, which is 73.8 as well. So either one works here, although I personally think the percent equation is a little easier there. All right, number 26, we're not going to answer in this video, but it says, which method do you prefer for answering percent problems and why? You might have a reason for preferring one over the other. I often have students who don't really care. They're fine with both of them, and that's okay too. All right, let's get into our word problems though. And you see a lot of gray boxes here. I showed percent proportion and percent equation for each of these, so you could see both. So number 27, if 18 out of 25 students in Mrs. Garcia's first period class received A's, what percent of the students received A's? Use either, not use the either, use either the percent proportion or the percent equation to find your solution. So I'm trying to find the percent. I'm trying to find R. My base is 25. That's the total number of students out of 25. My part is 18. So let's identify those. Part is 18, base is 25, R is my unknown. So let's start with the percent equation. P equals R times B is 18 equals R times 25. Divide both sides by 25. You get that R equals 0.72 or 72%. Let's check percent proportion. P over B will be, get out of the way there. 18 over 25 equals R out of 100. Cross multiply. We get 100 times 18, which is 1800, 25 times R, which is 25R. Divide both sides by 25, and you will get 72%. Same answer, both methods. It doesn't matter which one you use. Number 28, Trevor received a score of 60% on his social studies test. If he answered 24 of the questions correctly, how many questions were on the test? Use either the percent proportion or the percent equation to find your solution. So 60 is definitely going to be R, 60% or 0.6. 24 is the part though. That's the part that he answered out of the total. You're trying to find the total number of questions. That's our base that's unknown. So let's talk about the percent proportion first. We got 24 over B, P over B equals 60 out of 100. Cross multiply, we've got 60 times B is 60B, 24 times 100 is 2400. Divide both sides by 60, and we have 40 questions on the test. Let's do the percent equation. P equals R times B is 24 equals 0.6 times B. Divide both sides by 0.6. Guess what? You get 40 questions. Either way you do it, we determined that there are 40 questions on the test. All right, moving right along. Number 29, Reese's Peanut Butter Cups, one of my favorites. Gets 7 of its calories from fat. If this is 8% of the total number of calories, how many calories does a Reese's Peanut Butter Cup have? Round to the nearest whole number. Well, the part is 7. That's the part of the calories that come from fat. The bases are unknown. That's the total number of calories. R is 8% or 0.08. So for percent equation, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to reveal it all. We have P equals R times B is 7 equals 0.08 times B. Divide both sides by 0.08, and we get B is 87.5. That means that there are 80, this has to be the mini ones, right? 87.5 calories in the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup. Percent proportion, P over B is 7 over B equals 8 out of 100. Cross multiply, 8 times B is 8B, 7 times 100 is 700. Divide both sides by 8, and we get 87.5. All right, number 30. A pair of headphones is on sale for $45. This is 75% of the original price. What was the original price of the headphones? Use either the percent proportion or the percent equation to find your solution. So for this one, part again is 45 since we're trying to find the base, the total price before the sale, so the original price. And P is the part you're going to pay because that's going to be the sale price. R is definitely 75% or 0.75. So let's show you both methods. So first things first, percent equation. P equals R times B is 45 equals 0.75 times B. Divide both sides by 0.75. You will get $60, which makes sense. The original price should be higher. Percent proportion is 45 over B equals 75 out of 100. Cross multiply to get 75B equals 4,500. Divide both sides by 75. We will get $60. So we get the same solution either way. All right, moving right along. Number 31 is a commission question. Carly earns a 5% commission on the sale price of a house. If Carly sells a house for $225,000, how much commission will she earn? Commission, by the way, is an amount of money that is paid to an employee upon completion of a task, usually the task of selling a certain amount of goods or services, like car salesmen or real estate agents. They often earn commission instead of a regular salary. So in this case, if we've got a 5% commission, 5% is clearly R. We can also write that as 0.05. $225,000, though, is not the part. It's the base. It's the total amount the house was sold for. We want to figure out the part of that Carly is going to earn. So part is our unknown, base is 225, and R is 5% or 0.05. So percent equation would be P equals 0.05 times 225,000, which would get us 11,250. I do want to point out that should you put the numbers in the wrong spot, if you say that the part is 225,000, you end up getting an answer that is not reasonable. So I'm actually going to calculate it. You would end up getting an answer of, let me go ahead and do it. There we go. Man, that's a big number. So you would get 4,500,000. Hopefully you recognize that doesn't make sense. You're not going to earn $4,500,000 on a $225,000 home. So it's pretty easy to figure out if you've done it wrong in a problem like this. So just double check that. Percent proportion, just to show you this, would be P out of 225,000 equals 5 out of 100. When we cross multiply, we get 100p equals 1,125,000, but we got to divide both sides by 100. It also gets us $11,250. Still a lot, but again, if you only sell 1 or 2 houses a month, again, then depending on the sale price of those homes, depending on the amount of commission that you make, which I think a lot of times is about maybe like 2.5%. 5 seems a little high. About 2.5%, kind of makes sense. It's pretty reasonable. All right, let's take a look at number 32. 3 out of 5 middle school students have a cell phone. A. What percent of middle school students have a cell phone? Well, we need to write 3 out of 5 as a percent. I took 3 divided by 5. That got me 0.6. That's 60%. So then it says, if there are 500 students at LaCroix Middle School, how many students own a cell phone? One option you have is to set up a P, B, and R kind of situation, percent proportion, percent equation. B is my base. That's the total number of students at the middle school, which is 500. R is the percent that own a cell phone, 60% or 0.6. So one option is percent equation, P equals R times B. Oh, I do remember this was one that was messed up here. So P equals R times B would look like this. Let me type this down at the bottom. Would be P equals R times B would be 0.6 times 500. It's still going to get you an answer of 300, so 300 students. I remember that I accidentally copied the same work over twice previously, so just ignore that. That's the same work over here. The other option is to use the percent proportion. P over 500 equals 60 out of 100. That'll get us 100p equals 30,000 divided by 100, and that would get you 300 students. And again, the percent equation, this is, you can see I copied the same work over. This would be our percent equation work. So let me go ahead and pull this stuff up. There we go. So my bad. It happens sometimes. 300 students either way. Let's take a look at 33. So 33 is kind of a weird question. There are 1,200 students at Central High School. The ratio of boys to girls is 2 to 3. What percent of the students are boys? So this means that the ratio of boys to girls, 2 to 3. For every 2 boys, there's 3 girls. So I think the easiest way to envision this is to use a picture. So for every 2 boys, there's 3 girls. So when we ask what percent of the students are boys, well, if I've got 5 students here, 2 of them are boys, so 2 out of 5 is going to get us 40%. So we've got 2 out of every 5 students are boys, 2/5 is 40%. One option you have is to actually like double this. So let's take these students and make it out of 10. Let's see if it'll copy that for me. There we go. So if we double this, I still have 2 out of every 5, or for every 2 boys, there's 3 girls, so 2 out of every 5 are going to be boys. But an easier way to look at this is if we have 10 students, 4 out of the 10 are boys, that's 40%. So that is another way to look at it or compare the two, but either way, we don't need the 1,200. I do want to point that out. If I said to you how many of the 1,200 students are boys, you could find 40% of the 1,200, but it doesn't ask us to do that. So it's kind of some extraneous information. I'm sorry as I yawn, that you don't actually need to use here. You're probably yawning too if you're watching all this video all at once. All right, let's look at one last question that's 3 parts. Number 34. The circle graph below shows the percent of students at Miller Middle School that own each type of tablet. Use the circle graph to answer the questions below. A. How many of the 1,200 students at Miller Middle School own an iPad mini? So a lot of these iPads don't even exist anymore. I'm not even sure if like the Kindle Fire, I guess the Kindle Fire still exists, but I don't think iPad Air or iPad mini exist anymore. They might be called something different. So if we're going to do percent proportion and percent equation, we have to identify P, B, and R. B is 1,200, R is 25% since it's the iPad mini. That's 0.25. So let's start off with our percent equation. P equals R times B is 0.25 times 1,200. If we use the percent equation, we would have P over 1,200 equals 25 out of 100. Cross multiply. Either way, you get 300 students own an iPad mini. Letter B. How many of the 1,200 students at Miller Middle School own some type of iPad? Well, that includes the iPad, iPad mini, and iPad Air, which is 40 plus 25 plus 15%, or 80% of students. So in this question, P is our unknown, B is 1,200, and R is 80%, or 0.8. So percent equation is actually over here. P equals R times B is 0.8 times 1,200. Percent proportion is over here. P over 1,200 equals 80 out of 100. Cross multiply and solve, we get 960 students. Again, I'm not going through all the little details of solving the proportions because you guys know how to do that. Last question, part C. How many of the 1,200 students at Miller Middle School own a Microsoft Surface tablet? So R is 2%, or 0.02. B is still 1,200. Percent equation would be P equals 0.02 times 1,200, which is 24. Percent proportion would be P over 1,200 equals 2 out of 100. We cross multiply to solve there. We're going to get 100P equals 2,400, divide by 100. We get 24 students. So either way we look at this, we're going to end up with 24 students. All right, lots of examples in this video, of course, but hopefully you have a pretty good idea of how to solve some basic word problems using either the percent proportion or percent equation, and have a pretty base knowledge of each of these different methods for solving percent problems. Thanks for listening.